Um, hey lot. Um, I haven't done my daily review yet, so I'm just going to send you a quick video with a summary of what we did, and then I'll work on my review. Maybe I'll send you that so you see what template I'm using and stuff to doing the trade reviews at the end of the day. Um, we were sort of looking at kind of the same thing that you were looking at, which was a move up higher into I guess this value area here. This is, by the way, this is NQ, not ES, so you would have to switch over to that. Um, whatever levels are in ES, these are the equivalent levels in NQ. So this is where we were here trading overnight. And if we go really quick, like there are a few signs here of this kind of showing that it was um, basically bottoming out, and the first one is actually when we find a bottom here yesterday. I mean, this is true exhaustion, and we had like volume capitulation there, right? Look at that, the size of that candle. And then into the close, we kind of get a flush here that is bought up and soaked. Um, actually making a higher low here. And this doesn't look like much, but the scale is actually pretty important. Like this is 100 points higher. So that's kind of like showing that, oh, this thing looks like it's finally finding a bottom. And as you know, we've been capitulating for quite a while now. So this could be like the bottom of that move. So that's what we were thinking. Um, then here, like overnight action, it's just chop around VWAP. But VWAP is now still like sort of like flat, but sort of trending lower. It's a quite tight consolidation. We wouldn't have tried to trade this or anything. I was actually not home, but then I got home and I saw this. This was already on its way happening, starting to happen. So, um, and basically we have like we have some compression here, which is some structure that we're starting to see, and especially this really tight bit of structure here, and then it breaks below it, and we can see here the volume coming in, right? And this looks like a lot of volume for pre-market action, for, this is even before um, it's before it's around 7 a.m. So, um, I got home and that was happening. So I missed it. I missed this first like flush here. So when I got home, this was already down here, and then what I did is um, I'm just gonna go in really quick to the very specific trades, like on a very micro level. So then I'm having missed this. It's that rectangle there. It doesn't mean that I took that trade. I took this little bounce here. When I got home, it had already bounced. I chased a little bit, so I captured this little part here. Um, Basically, what we're looking at here is that this whole liquidation here finally exhausts into this area. And you can see here, if I move it here into that frame, move that other part outside of the frame, look at the volume profile. So this is an area where a lot of volume was traded. Um, and you need to pay especially close attention to the volume bars, and that'll tell you the story, right? So um, when it was liquidating on the way down, you can see how there's a couple of times. I guess this is the first time, and maybe a little bit here, but this is the first part where you see real volume capitulation. So it tried to find a bottom there. In this case, like around the 960s, 24,960. And you can also see, if you pay attention to the geometry of the trend here. It looks, you can see this red candle here, how it just boom. This is price capitulation. I mean, let's zoom in. This is, the candle's a lot larger than all the other candles. So it's very tight, tight, tight here. And then here, bam, we see true volume capitulation, which basically that candle opens at 967 and closes at 950. So, 10 points. So these are very tight. These are only like two, maybe 3, 4 points. So we get that in combination with volume, right? We actually got some volume capitulation first here. It didn't bounce, stayed heavy, and then so it's like that double little dip there. So that's if you zoom in a lot. So I wasn't there, I didn't see that happen or anything, but that kind of shows you like an attempt there to exhaust. This is what we call exhaustion. So we have a trend here, in this case, like a pretty nasty liquidation trend here on high volume, and then this is the exhaustion of that, but it didn't quite exhaust, right? It had a bit of a bounce there, like 20 points, but still a shallow bounce compared to the length of this move, and then back down it goes. Um, and what's important here is that this exhaustion here marks a level basically where it tried to bounce when we got volume capitulation, we got price capitulation. That volume is a lot of people trying to buy that exhaustion, thinking that it's going to bounce there. And then when it moves back down against that level and it takes out that level, then this volume that was buying there, they capitulate because they're going to be stopped out, right? They're on the wrong side of the trade now. So that's going to fuel a cascade of more selling, and makes the momentum even accelerate even further. So that was clearly not the bottom. So then it keeps liquidating. Then we get true exhaustion down here. Shallow bounce, the last leg here, tons of volume. Like if you zoom out here, then you can see it's like there's like a lot of volume there. That would be like, so that's the bounce, the sort of like the first bounce. The one that I took, again, this is a very short time frame, it's 5 seconds. So, this bounce here, and then we get a double bottom into the same area. Another, you can see the volume candles here, and then bam, outsized volume candle here, bam, price capitulation, volume, exhaustion, into the same level, basically a double top. That was another little bounce. I didn't capture that, but Luca did. And, you know, 20 points bounce, right? But then what's happening here? It's rolling over. It's giving us, it bounced into a lower high. After that, it puts in another low high, tests the same level, but this time it's not exhausting like it did here. You don't see a outsized volume candle here or anything. So it's like sort of like drifting or creeping into that level with not a lot happening, not a lot of buyers stepping in. Balances a little bit, puts in even a lower high. So at this point where you're looking at it here, you're like, this thing is ready to crack and keep going lower. What happened here is pretty much the equivalent of what happened here, but well, more drawn out with a lot more volume trapped. All this action here would have trapped volume. People that thought that this was going to be a V-shaped bounce, then they get trapped and they add fuel to this momentum down here. This is just a blip. Like if we go to 1 minute chart, we can't even see what happened up there. We see a little wick there, but on a 1 minute, this does show up here. So this is like a higher time frame thing, but it's the same concept, same principles, right? So we get this thing trapping volume here, and then that means that once that volume is trapped, then we get the next leg down. So it's basically a breakout to the downside, right? We're not getting in. I mean, there's many styles of trading if you want to be aggressive and but a lot more risky if you want to short these lower highs, but the safest way is probably waiting for confirmation. And when this thing flushes here below that level, and we already know that it's breaking out, then we find an entry. We either chase here or we wait for this pop here, and then we pile in short, knowing that this is going to give us a flush down into the next important area, which is the low 800s. So that's basically one leg that you can capture, knowing this sort of pattern here where you know that volume is being trapped. And guess what? The same thing happens here. So this exhausts here into the low 800s. You leave it alone. This could be the bottom of it. In fact, you can play it both ways. You can actually be fading this exhaustion or buying, the bounce for this, and this would have been actually a pretty good trade as well. Um, you let it do whatever it's doing here, but if it comes back down and now it wants to take out that area that we're exhausted here again, it's the same principle. All of this would have trapped a lot of volume, and that we're getting the next leg of that exhaustion. And it's pure momentum. Again, the reason why we're trading here so actively is because we're only picking those pockets of true momentum, because that's where the trades have 70, 80, 90% chance of working, so we're not risking and we're maximizing. We can put a lot of size in that little bit there, and just you know it's good for consistency, right? So you're not risking much. um so, anyways, we did that over and over because this is a pattern that repeated itself until we ended up exhausting here in the low 700s. And then we left it alone when clearly here it's creating a counter trend. Um, and again, sometimes you're able to capture that moment if you join trend and then you join, you're trading into the exhaustion and then you cover. And if you're not able to do that, you can always fade the exhaustion at the bottom for the bounce, which is that's actually what I did here because I wasn't able to get in on the way down. So um, you can play it both ways. You can play the exhaustions. You can fade them for little bounces, or you can just join trend into the exhaustions. So this is what we traded in the pre-market. And again, if you go to a 1 minute, this is again where I thought of you because I still haven't incorporated this into my trading, and I'd like to, is despite all this active trading in and out and in order and just seeking consistency and safety and trying to risk very very little and maximize on those pockets of momentum. There's something to be said as well for identifying the potential for this to move into whatever target area we may have. And then, on a 1 minute, this is a 10 EMA. On a 1 minute, it never breached that 10 EMA, and we would have probably put on a core up here, and we would have taken the trade all the way down to here. So that's something to think about. Again, I'd like to incorporate it. So that's what we traded. Sorry, in the morning, pre-market. And when it exhausts here at the bottom, then we see all this volume here. We're thinking, wow, this is, we saw some signs of this bottoming the day before. We're kind of taking out those bottoms here, but now we're seeing a lot of volume, especially for pre-market. A lot of volume here, kind of like soaking up this exhaustion. So we thought it was ready to, as you were, this was ready to like retrace, reclaim VWAP here, and then head up higher into this area and probably higher. So, but it didn't do that. So what ended up happening is, back to the 5 second, is that, we did get sort of a strong open here, but it was very, very choppy and difficult. This was the only trade with edge that I found, which was fading this pop into the top of the range of the pre-market range for a short here, and that's about it. This was all very sketchy. The tape action was not very, readable, and typically when we get a VWAP reclaim, we would get like instant reclaiming and then trend higher, but that didn't happen. It chopped around VWAP. It felt very weak, and it felt like more or less it was just trapping a lot, especially longs that thought that this was going to continue up higher, and then we get this trend downward. And the thing is that this, as clean or easy as it looks, it was not easy at all because it was that sketchy tape action, and we didn't really get true clean momentum like the momentum that we got here. We didn't really get that until we took out the lows here. So this bit here was actually true momentum, and that's what we traded. And we traded it. In fact, I, I was a little bit too cautious, and I didn't. So I kind of missed. I did a couple of attempts. I really didn't trade. I I wasn't able to join trend into exhaustion here, but I did catch after realizing I had missed most of the move. I just waited for exhaustion, and then I traded the bounce here, and it was a very, very good bounce. Um, like 60 points. And that's about it. So that's the way we traded today. There's no edge later on. It's all just pure chop. There's perhaps maybe the breakout of this structure here. There's a couple of things that I marked here that I didn't trade. I wasn't home, but I'm coming back, and these are potentially the little scalps that I think would have had edge to trade, and it would have been the break of this bit of momentum here into VWAP. What's the principle here? Sort of the same thing. We're always looking to see where people are trapped. So in this case, um, where we get this retracement back into VWAP, we're testing VWAP, and it's kind of failing, similar to the way it failed up here, and it's rolling over and it starts dying. And a lot of people will take this as this rejection from VWAP as a sign that this is just gonna continue downward, especially because we're also making a lower high. Um, and we get this kind of like sketchy tight consolidation here that I'm pretty sure must have trapped a lot of people that were trying to short here. So when it breaks out, when it breaks trend to the upside here, I think there's a lot of people trapped, and the proof of that is this candle here, right? So when it breaks that trend line and pops here, look at that, the size of that candle. That tells you that this was pure momentum to the upside. It exhausts here. Um, this was a whatever 20, 30 point move, so it was significant. And then after that happens, it stays sort of like consolidates in a little tight range here, up high and above from the breakout area. And this is where I find there's the most edge. You know that there's still volume trapped. It didn't typically, when we get an exhaustion like this, it should be faded. It shouldn't come back down, but it didn't. And this is where we get, that little pocket of absolute certainty where you know that there's like 90% that this thing is just gonna um, pop because this volume trapped here needs to capitulate, and then it pushes up higher. So would have been a good trade. Entry here at around the 760s, out in around 800. So that's like 40 points. That doesn't look like much at the scale of things here, but it's actually a huge move. So why not get here during the consolidation? Because there's no edge there. You can get chopped up. You don't know if it's going to break out. Can you take the breakout here if you're very much in tune with the tape? And well, yes, but this thing typically would happen so fast that you might find yourself chasing up into up here, and then if they sell into it, then you're trapped. So this is the best, the spot with the highest EV where um, um, you don't put yourself at risk here, but then here it's like confirmed that you have volume trapped and you just have to wait for it to pop, and it does. And that's it. There's a couple of other trades here that looked like they had edge, but video's already too long. So again, this gives you an idea of how we're looking at things, and yeah, I'll be in touch tomorrow. See if we can set up a call with you and Luke either tomorrow or over the weekend and go over a few things. All right, thanks.